From the towering Wasatch Mountains of the American Southwest, we welcome you to this episode of Undiscovered Utah. This show focuses on the mysteries that surround the rugged, difficult, and sometimes deadly American Southwest. I'm your host, JB, and tonight we're talking about portals, resurrection of the dead, and the center of the Earth's axis, and what they all have in common. Let me tell you something. Religious beliefs have brought peace to many through its teachings, and sadly, it has brought war and heartache to many through our disagreements of theology. People are much more likely to go to war over religious beliefs than over government policies, precious commodities, or land. Governments, on the other hand, love to go to war over policies, precious commodities, and land. But they usually stir the people up using aspects of religious differences. It's sad, but true. So why are we so passionate about our religious beliefs? Europeans in the 1600s left Europe and crossed the Atlantic Ocean in search of a new promised land where they could worship freely. The Puritans wanted to reform and purify the Church of England, and the Pilgrims felt that the Church of England was beyond redemption due to the Church's resistance to reform. Even the area we call Utah today has a history of people seeking religious freedom that were willing to leave behind their homes and lands for the freedom to practice their religious beliefs without persecution. But even centuries after the Pilgrims crossed the ocean on the Mayflower, there are few things, if any, that can work us into a frenzy more than differences in religious beliefs. Most of the time we consider our personal beliefs the only correct beliefs. Oh, sure, we might tolerate other beliefs for a time anyway, until we perceive that they might threaten our personal salvation or the salvation of those we love. So we search out for a community of like-minded believers. We have a desire to surround ourselves with people that have similar values and beliefs. You could say that we have the desire to create a utopia, where everyone is equal in categories such as economics, government, and justice. Sounds reasonable, right? So what is the difference between a group of individuals trying to create a utopia and a group of individuals that have formed a cult? Well, what is the definition of a cult? One definition is as follows: a relatively small group of people having religious beliefs or practices regarded by others as strange or sinister. I have heard people refer to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the predominant religion in Utah, as a cult. Well, let's look at the definition. A relatively small group. What is a relatively small group? 25? 100? 1,000? 10,000? Maybe 100,000? 1,000,000? 17 million? That is the current size of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, so to me, that's not exactly a relatively small group. What about the practices of the church? Are they strange or sinister? Well, the definition of sinister is giving the impression that something harmful or evil is happening or will happen. I personally don't think the church as an organization is sinister in nature. Sure, some members or ex-members might be considered sinister, but that's most likely true in all religions. I think that most world governments would be considered much more sinister by definition than the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints or any other mainstream religion. It is true that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has their version of a utopia, or Zion, as they call it. But tonight, I want to talk about another group of people that were in no way associated with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They have been labeled by some as a cult. I will ask you at the end of the episode if you believe this group of people would fit the definition of a cult. Many people throughout history have tried to create this perfect society. One such person was a lady by the name of Mary Ogden. You see, Mary Ogden was a wealthy, well-educated widow from Newark, New Jersey. She was very active in her community and in serving the poor. As the death of her husband, Harry, Mary started to search to find answers. She started a personal spiritual journey in the hope to find a way to communicate with her deceased husband that she dearly missed. Mary started an organization called the School of Truth, in the hope of finding others that had similar questions about death and the meaning of life in general. Not long after starting the School of Truth, she joined an organization called the League of Liberators. The League of Liberators was run by a man by the name of William Dudley Pelley. His teachings about spiritual matters and living a minimalist lifestyle intrigued Mary. But Mary and Pelley didn't see eye to eye on many political matters, so Mary left the organization. Mary believed that she could receive direct revelation through her typewriter and began to tour the country and give lectures and speeches. She was attracting quite a following of like-minded individuals. Mary was on a mission to find the truth and to teach it to others. As Mary was traveling throughout the country, she found herself in Boise, Idaho. It was in Boise that Mary announced that she had received a revelation directing her to form a religious colony dedicated to the truth. She also saw a mental picture of the place where she should build this colony. After receiving this revelation, Mary returned home to New Jersey. Mary was convinced she needed to identify the location she had seen in her revelation. She knew it was somewhere in the Intermountain country and that it was virgin soil, far removed from city life. So where can you find virgin soil far removed from city life in the Intermountain West? Hey, I know. How about Utah? Mary learned of some land for sale in Utah in San Juan County through some friends of hers. She traveled to Utah to see the parcel of land. After seeing the area, she declared that this was, in fact, the land she had seen in her revelation. She wanted to buy a nice piece of irrigated farmland, but the owner was asking more than Mary could afford. So Mary offered the owner membership in her new colony and guaranteed him eternal life. But the landowner was more interested in the money, and they could not come to an agreement. Mary and her followers found another area of land that was true Utah desert near Church Rock, between Moab and Monticello, Utah. Mary declared that this was the location of Christ's second coming, and she started to build the Home of Truth in an area known by the name of Dry Valley. The colony consisted of 3 sections, or portals. The outer portal was located about a half a mile west of U-160 down a dry and dusty road. The outer portal consisted of many buildings, including a communal house and a dormitory. None of the buildings had electricity or running water. The middle portal was 1.5 miles further down the same dusty road. The middle portal was the largest of the 3 portals and contained many buildings that were constructed by the members of the community. The middle portal was planned to also have a cobblestone chapel, but this was never completed. The third and last portal was the inner portal. It contained 6 houses and a barracks. It was believed that the inner portal was located on the exact center of the Earth's axis. It was also the belief that only those that lived in the inner portal would be spared during the last days before Christ's second coming. Near the inner portal was Mount Shea, a 9,987-foot high mountain that Mary would climb to receive further revelations. Shea Mountain was considered to be a holy mountain by the colony. Life was difficult for the members of the small community. To be admitted into the society, one must surrender all of their earthly possessions to the community. In return, food, housing, and clothing were provided by the community. Alcohol and tobacco were prohibited, and in time all meat was prohibited except for fish. More and more people joined the colony. In 1934, there were over 100 people living at the Home of Truth. Then in 1935, a lady by the name of Edith Pushak passed away due to cancer. Edith and her husband had joined the Home of Truth in hopes of being cured of this disease. Mary Ogden told the community that Edith was in a state of purification and that soon Mary would be able to bring Edith back to life. Back in 1934, Mary purchased a local newspaper called the San Juan Record. Mary became the editor of the newspaper. She used the newspaper to publish her teachings and to give updates on the growing community. On April 4th, 1935, the San Juan Record published the first in a series of articles entitled The Rebirth of a Soul. Let's listen to Mary in her own words describe what was happening at the Home of Truth.
Introductory note. In order to fully grasp the reality of the following chapters, or to realize the possibilities in store for one who may be suffering from any form of so-called incurable ailment, it will be necessary to go into considerable detail as this recount is unfolded from week to week. But it will serve to bring you the truth that there is no end to the existence of the inner or real part of a human being. Death, so-called, occurs when a bodily function stops or heart action ceases, although modern science is seeking ways and means to prolong life after all outward signs indicate that the person over whom they are working has given up the struggle to live. Such a case has been my privilege to witness, and in such manner as will scarcely seem possible to believe could be so. In the coming weeks, I will outline a few facts to indicate certain progress, backward and then forward, over a period of time, and so this drama of life be unfolded for you. During the year 1932, when I began to accumulate correspondence relative to the message being sent through the country at that time, with friends who were equally interested to seek enlightenment concerning the things outlined in the messages, it was my pleasure to hear from a woman in the northeastern part of the country about the time I was planning to visit other friends in that vicinity. In due time we met, and it was pleasant to realize that a family living on the outskirts of a large city were so interested in the deeper things of life, and in such manner as indicated that they might become members of the community, which I knew, even at that early date, would be established at that time. However, no definite instruction had been recorded concerning the time or place. This family consisted of a father, mother, and son. The son seemed to be especially well informed concerning the metaphysical truths, and had made careful study of the messages and other information sent out from our Eastern home, which I had turned into a place of public use to accommodate friends who were interested in making a study of the mysteries of life, and who were meeting regularly to discuss their respective views concerning the changing times and how to meet them. It so happened that when we were able to complete plans and come to this desert land, in the late summer of 1933, to begin our work at this point, this young man was one of the first arrivals, and for a time he served in a diligent manner, performing menial tasks which were part of the general work to be done in our attempt to make a settlement here. A few months later, I made another visit to this distant city to tell of the work accomplished and the future plans, and to try to prove that we were sincere and capable of bringing into being the kingdom of heaven on earth, which we are seeking to establish according to the instruction given us. On this occasion, plans were made whereby the father and mother would come to us in the early spring months. Accordingly, early in April, the move was completed, and so began our first association together. Needless to say, we were all made happy, and none more than the father, who had said little up to this time concerning the teaching offered in the recorded messages sent forth, and who claimed to know little about the metaphysical truths. This fact is mentioned for a reason which cannot be given now, but will be referred to later. So you have the briefest outline concerning the advent of this family into our midst, in order that they may become an active part of the community life to be established as a preliminary effort toward the greater work of the future. The next installment will carry forward the picture over the spring and summer months of 1934, and so will you be ready for the ensuing episodes, which will carry you forward from a date some few months back when more details may be included.
Week after week, Mary would publish another article entitled The Rebirth of a Soul and update the readers of the paper with the unfolding drama of this tragic story. The following excerpt is from the May 16th, 1935 edition of the paper and is a reported revelation given to Mary concerning the mother of the family that was dying of cancer. Her health was failing quickly, and Mary was convinced that the mother lacked the faith needed to be healed because the medical professionals had stated that the cancer was so far spread that nothing could be done.
There is only one way in which you can be allowed to help her, and that is through her own willingness to submit herself in true fashion to the record word in regard to divorcement from the thoughts she harbors concerning her depleted condition. She is so strong-willed, in a human sense, that she cannot understand these words. You know the determination of such afflicted ones to forget all other issues when their life hangs in the balance, so to speak. It will avail neither and only lengthen the period of time she must suffer, for her life is being prolonged in order to make her realize that she of herself must do that to do if she would be restored to perfect health again, which is asked of her. Give no thought to the method of this restoration, for you have work to complete in other directions before you may settle down to the complete preparation of self in order to help her, as I will give you power to do, if she will, in turn, do her part. Be not concerned that you cannot help at this point.
Then Mary shared this revelation on June 6, 1935.
When you have completed the work of the coming hours, you must turn your attention to another day of relaxation and meditation, for the time is not far distant when you will be called upon to act for the faithful companion of other days, who is fast losing her identity as a human being.
Then in late June, the newspaper published an update that was upsetting to everyone that read it. Mary had been coaching the cancer victim that more faith was needed and that it was her fault she was not being healed. The article reads as follows.
This thing, however, had little meaning to our unhappy patient, and she would look at me in seeming disgust at times as I asked her to count these blessings and give thanks for them.
Sadly to say, Edith, the woman with cancer, passed away. Her husband ran to Mary and told her the sad news. Mary responded, "It cannot be." Mary went to Edith's side and asked the nurse and Edith's husband to leave the room, as Mary had a work to do. Now, it was the goal to resurrect the deceased. It was during the next 5 hours that Mary stayed by Edith's side, waiting for revelation of how to proceed. This is how Mary describes what happened next.
During the 5th hour, I made contact with our friends in unseen realms, and so began an explanation of the condition which persisted with such force from the so-called dark forces, who were determined to make more complete their work of the moment. I was told that they had taken possession of our loved one, and that she had submitted in desperation to them at the moment when she gave her final words to her husband. She said, "I can't take it any longer," and with that gave up the ghost.
Mary, in an effort to resurrect Edith's body, said that the unseen friends told her that the body could be preserved indefinitely as long as Mary provided a certain quote-unquote force of power through what Mary called an unusual method of contact. Mary stated that Edith was in a state of purification and could soon be brought back to life. Edith's body stayed in the bed where she had passed away. The bedding was changed from time to time, and the body was washed from time to time. Local authorities investigated the Home of Truth and found Edith's body in a well-preserved state and saw no immediate health risk to anyone else, so they left the body there. In February of 1937, Mary made another announcement that Edith was about to be restored to life. This was almost 2 years after she had died. With this shocking announcement, authorities returned to the Home of Truth. Mary insisted that Edith was not dead, and Edith's body was nowhere to be found. Mary refused to sign the death certificate, so the sheriff arrested Mary and took her into custody. Then on May 4th, 1937, Mary finally signed the death certificate. However, Edith's body was never discovered. It didn't take long after the drama above played out that almost all of the residents of the Home of Truth abandoned the complex. Mary was left nearly alone. So, what do you think? That's the story of the Home of Truth and of Mary and Edith. Did Mary create a cult? Or was Edith resurrected? Mary passed away in 1975 in Blanding, Utah. Today, if you visit the ghost town of the Home of Truth, you will see a sign over the gate to the inner portal that reads, Mary's Place. The current owner is trying to restore the buildings and wanted to allow the public to take tours once the buildings were restored. You will also find a small cemetery that holds 5 graves. Edith's isn't one of them. Well, that's it for this episode. Thanks for joining me. If you would like more information about tonight's episode, you can email me at info@undiscoveredutah.com. You can find us on the internet at undiscoveredutah.com or on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Be sure to follow us. Just search for Undiscovered Utah. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Undiscovered Utah. Join me next time as I share more about the Great Southwest. Good night, everybody.